Okay. Uh, it's Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, as a matter of fact. Have one more video I want to throw in the module 6, which is concerned with excavating a subdivision. And I'll say again, there's a ton of information in this module, and we will not be able to cover it all. And you will not leave this module with a thorough understanding of the process, steps, procedures, uh, planning, all of this stuff, that what we do get to. You're not going to leave with retain a lot of it, but it's here if you want to go back and review it. Uh, I'll do my best to fill in some things that may not be covered in the book, or maybe even try to explain some things that are a little bit vague that aren't in the book. But nevertheless, we will move on. Uh, Planning the excavation will be the topic of this video. And of course, you can see or realize or understand that it's very important, as the book says, that the foreman work out a good plan for excavating and filling, cutting and filling. So the equipment travels the shortest distance. So the equipment haul distance is as short as possible between cut area and fill area, because this job, as we talked about earlier, is pretty well balanced. The scenario that was laid out in the last video, where that there was like 53 and 58,000, or close to the same amount of cut as there is fill. And if all of that cut material is usable, or suitable is a better word for it, for the fill areas, then that will cut down a lot on things like either having too much material that we have to have hauled off, or going to a borrow pit somewhere and hauling in suitable material. So that's a good thing. But regardless, when you're out there in the field and you have a lot going on with scrapers and dozers and graders and compactors and water trucks going on, you need to make sure that everything is moving and operating efficiently. So it has a hint, and not a hint, but a suggestion here in this first paragraph. I'm on page 161 if you're following it in the book, which probably is a good idea, because you can note, like, what is this, or what do you mean here? And maybe we can find time to answer those questions. So, if possible, the book says to start the first cut in the largest cut area. So the scrapers or excavators or dozers are going to be busy, and that's going to give, or this is in the very beginning, this is going to give the grade setter and the operators a little more time to get familiar with the job before moving to a second cut. And it has mentioned in here a crew meeting. Now, before I leave this first paragraph, the just give me a second here. I have some notes that I made about what's in the book. It says start at the largest cut. This gives the grade setter and operators more time to become familiar with the job before moving to the second cut area. Now, my notes follow that up with the crew meeting, which I think I'm on track with the book, uh, and preparation. Here's the crew meeting, and it says right there in the book, it says before the equipment begins working, the foreman will meet with his crew to discuss the job and his excavation plan. He'll show them where he wants to start excavating and where the fill areas will be. And when I say he, as the book says he all the time, It's not because it's not appropriate anymore to focus on gender, but there are many, many competent female as well as male site superintendents out there, project managers, laborers, and operators. So let me make that clear because I've worked with both. Okay. It says on the second day, I think it skips that. Let's see if the book does. So, oh, let me talk about this just for a second as you're looking at this. This is a water truck at the top loading from a standpipe, and you can see a hose all rolled out there. The flow rate, as some of you may be familiar with, is much slower in this uh, configuration as opposed to having an on-site tank that's you keep full of water so that the truck, the gravity flow of this tank uh, is much faster than the flow rate of the standpipe. So this helps keep the uh, job moving. All those little things make a difference. It says on the second day, do I have that in my notes? It says on the second day, the water truck and the grader and the paddle wheel scraper begin to work. The scraper starts stripping. That's where you start stripping the topsoil. That's usually done by the scraper. The grader will go to fill sites where there's vegetation and begin scraping that off and spread it out to dry. The water truck and the compactor follow the grader, watering and compacting all fill areas. This is before we start putting fill there. By the time the prep work is done, the grade setter will have all fills painted up on the lath and boots. Now it talks about that in the book and set to start. Now what he's doing uh, is he's spray painting. You'll have when a survey crew sets out a subdivision, you're going to have the surveyor stakes, and usually they're marking finish grade, and then the grade setter is going to put his stake right beside the surveyor stake in most cases, and he'll probably mark a boot. But what he's also going to do is take that spray paint and go up, spray up his lath to a point where when the grade is at the top of that, and usually orange paint, the uh, scraper operator, especially because he's moving pretty fast, will be able to say when he makes his next pass, he drops a lift. When then he makes his other, he can come around and see on his way to each stake how far down he is, or if he's above the orange, he's going to have to cut it back down to where the orange paint stopped. So that's just another way that he'll have that paint for the operator, and then he'll mark his own boot for himself so he can check grade himself and tell the with a hand level, telling the scraper operator you need to go up or down. Or sometimes they'll write it and they have their own symbols. Some of them will have a circle with a 4, and they have made arrangement. That 4 means 4/10. Or they'll have different arrangement. There'll be hand signals for each uh, grade checker and operator. Like cut is, it's just all different, but it's all understood by operators, grade setters, and the rest of the crew. Uh, I don't want to leave this. Let's see, I'm talking about the second day. Let's see where we're going next and check with my notes so you see that I've covered everything. Okay. This all of this that I have highlighted that you see here under preparation work is I kind of went over what's in it in my notes, uh, and then if you read on down here what the book says, uh, down in the second paragraph says usually the surveyors place one lath and hub at each back corner of a lot. if two lots meet at that point, they'll drive a lath. So a wide side of the lath faces each lot, so there's writing on each side of the lath. We'll see that here in just a minute. A little example: the surveyor will mark a cutter field on each side of the lath facing the corresponding lot, like lot 7 and lot 8. The front lot corners will have one lath on line offset 5 feet toward the street, offset 5 feet toward the street. The wide side will face the street with the offset and grade for the finished sidewalk grade, the top back of walk marked. Let me read that again. The wide side will face the street with the offset and grade for finished sidewalk grade, and that's the top back of the walk marked. On the back of the same lath, the surveyor will mark the grade of both lot corners. Now, there's some, I don't have time in this one, but I do have some examples of what that's talking about. It's a little bit complicated in the subdivision because you're working in two different directions as you're setting grades. So this next paragraph here, have my notes. It says notice on the front of the lath in figure. So we're going to go to figure 9. What does that say? Figure 9-7. And as I'm talking about this, I'm hoping that my notes will cover what I'm talking about. But let's go to figure 9-7. And I don't think we're too far away. Well, look at that. Here's figure 9-7. Here's some of the things we just talked about. He's got this is the surveyor's hub right here. This is one lath. On one side of it, its offset is 5 foot. Now, let me catch up here. The right-of-way, right here, we're talking right-of-way, is 15 foot off the right-of-way. The right-of-way is 15 foot off. It has a cut of 4 8/10. Now, to back up, I want to make sure that I'm thinking this right. So let me read it as the book says it. Notice on the front of the lath, the offset is 15 feet to the top back of the walk. That's the sidewalk. The plans for this job show that the right-of-way, that's where that information came from, and the top back of walk are the same distance. As we saw, both had a 15 foot, and there's a cut of 4 8/10, or 4 80/100. On the back of the lath, the surveyor has marked a 5 foot offset to the lot corners with a 2 foot lot 7 and a 2.2 cut for lot 8. Usually the surveyor will put different colored ribbon on the front and back of lot stakes. Notice in the figure that the top line of the drawing is marked existing ground to be excavated, and then it says the bottom grade line reads finished lot pad and finished profile grade. It's telling you where that is. That's the finished profile after the sidewalk and curb are poured and the street is paved. So you're done there. That's finished grade. The finished lot profile is our excavation grade, assuming this is butting up to, let's see, an existing subdivision. And we need a 2 foot cut to match the adjacent ground. The foreman will probably want to start the scrapers cutting perpendicular. That's going on the lots, cutting perpendicular to the, oh my goodness, I lost my place. Cutting perpendicular to the street and parallel to the existing yards or lots. They're cutting this way. He'll have the operators cut the grade far enough away from the existing lots or fence so there's room for the scrapers to get turned and cut parallel to the street. So they got to go one way and then get turned and be cutting parallel to the streets. So here's your lot. This is where the house, and there you go back here. There's probably another lot. What we have is cutting out lots on a slope. I don't. Oh, here's the existing grade, as you can see. So we got the. This is finished grade right through here for the sidewalk, the curb, and the street. And here's your finished lot grade right here. And it's all coming from these hubs and these laths set by the surveyor here. Now again, here's your 5 foot offset hub already here when we got here. Now these two things have been, this is from the this front stake is on the front. I mean, this marking right here is on the front, and this is talking about the 5 foot offset right here. This is on the back of this stake. Both of these are set by a surveyor. And again, the grade trader may come and set his own stake out here so he can start checking these subgrades. Now these grades are not subgrades. I think these are finished grade because it said after the sidewalk had been poured and the sidewalk and curb had been poured and the street had been paved. So I want to talk about before I move on to, and this is really good stuff coming up, haul distance and equipment balance. But before I get there, or maybe I should read my notes. I may be already in there. Uh, yeah, here on my notes I have watching distance and equipment balance. Hold it before I read that. I want to talk about a mass haul diagram. And I have it, where do I do talk about that? Let me get to that. They don't talk about it in here, but I want to talk about it. It's worth waiting on me, I think. Well, I can't find it in my notes. Oh, here it is. This is back on under planning. But let me just go through that because we're going to still be talking about this haul distance and things like that. And I made a little note about a mass haul diagram. You're going to know what one of those is before you leave this this next module. We'll get into quantities a lot in week 7 next week. So the travel time from cut to fill is number one when planning excavation. How long is it going to take me to get dirt from the cut area to the fill area? You know, a mass haul diagram will assist in this determination. This information that comes from a mass haul diagram can help the foreman determine where to start and the direction of the earth moving operation. You know, we're going to start at station 00 plus 00 for our plans, but that's not necessarily where we want to start excavation. The existing terrain at in the mass haul diagram will show this at the start. Station 00 plus 00 maybe maybe may need to be a fill. In other words, it's too low there. So you move on down up station, they call it. Maybe we need to start 100 feet away at station 100 and move dirt back toward 00. But that's the kind of information you're going to get off that mass haul diagram, where the cuts are, how much the cut is, and you'll be able to determine your cuts and, I mean, your equipment not only type but size by looking at those mass haul diagrams. And a mass diagram is a graphic representation. This is my definition. Graphic representation of quantity and location of cuts and fills. The book tells us to start at the largest cut. This gives the grade setter and operators more time to become familiar. I've already gone over that, I think. More familiar with the cut area. Now, the crew meeting, I talked about discuss the job and the excavation, and I think I've talked about that. I want to go back and make sure. Planning excavation. Then we talked a little about the crew meeting here where everybody gets together. We talked about the water sources and the prep work. We went through this about what all of these things are going to be doing. Water truck, grader, and paddle wheel scraper begin to work on the second day. And then the scraper starts stripping. Yeah, I went over that. The grader scrapes the vegetation off the field lots. Actually, they rip them and then they scatter them out and let those stripped areas start drying because they'll reuse it again. The water truck and the compactor follow the grader, watering and compacting all fill areas. And by the time the prep work is done, the grade setter has his, at least he's ahead of everybody, so that they'll have stakes for the upcoming grading operations. Let's see, what did I talk about next? So we talked about those laughs in figure 9.7 and that cut. And really, without being able to see the whole layout, it's hard to kind of conceptualize exactly what's going on there. But as you're using, basically what they're doing is they're using the surveyor uses the same lath for the front and back. There are cases when they'll put those stakes will be on the back of the lot, and I forget when that is. I think it has to do with how close to grade the lot is. So enough about that figure. Let's see if there's some things in here. Each backlight. They're here. Look right here. It says usually the surveyors place one lath and hub at each backlot corner. If two lots meet at that point, they'll drive laths so a wide side of the lath faces each lot. The surveyor will mark a cutter field on each side of the lath facing the corresponding lot. The front lot corners will have one lath on line offset 5 feet toward the street. That's kind of what the figure 997, I believe it was showing. The wide side will face street with the offset and grade for finished side product. Yeah, it's just describing that figure that we looked at. Here's that cut. And it goes on and talked about where existing ground and grade. And we've already covered that. So let me see. I think I'm getting, I need to get in this make sure we get this watching the haul distance and equipment balance. I don't know if you recall from was it Introduction to Excavation where we talked about scraper spreads. We talked about maybe having another scraper spread, and I think in the tailgater in the assignment I asked you what you thought a scraper spread is. Well, let's kind of read from the book here, or maybe I've got some better notes. Let me look at what I said. I think that there are some, let's kind of read through that because I really kind of, this is kind of the choreography, if you will, and that word choreography means who's doing what and when, like in dances and stuff like that. So while the work is going on, the foreman must watch the excavation closely to be sure the scrapers have good haul road and the fills are made in the right order to keep the haul distance to a minimum. In other words, he's planned out who gets the fill first, and that was the largest because that's going to take a little more time, giving the other guys time and gals to get caught up. He'll be watching equipment balance. If he notices, and has to do with balance, what I'm about to read right through your. I don't know if I can highlight. Sometimes it lets me, and sometimes it doesn't. Uh, this time it will if I do this funky deal here. I'm just going to note that. If he notices the push dozer is waiting for a scraper to return, for scrapers to return to the cut area each time, he should, in other words, if he notices scrapers are being held up, he should add another scraper. If the scraper is always waiting to be pushed, if the scraper is always waiting to be pushed, these are the things he's looking out for. If they're waiting to be pushed, then there are too many scrapers. There's a traffic jam for a balanced spread, and there's your scraper spread. It's just when there's a group of scrapers working in the same area. And then it goes on to say these conditions may be temporary. If you get into a cut area with a short haul to the field area, 30 to 40 loads, the scrapers may be waiting to load. So once that, you can't have that. You've got to have a way of loading those scrapers. Nothing can just sit there. Once that cut is made and the haul gets longer at the next cut area, the equipment balance will be good again. So you're going to have an accordion effect, just like when you're in traffic. People don't go the exact same speed, and that's what causes that accordion effect, where you get real close and then you stop and then you speed up. That's because you're not consistent in your travel speed. Same thing happens on the job site. At the same time, wait a minute, let me read this. It may require too much moving around. Balancing equipment is already a juggling act the foreman must perform daily. He has to constantly evaluate whether he has enough water trucks, scrapers, compactors, graders, or if adding a ripper dozer, cat dozer, would increase production. The foreman must also pay close attention to the compaction tests taken in the field area. This is a busy position. If the optimum moisture starts going up and the test results start to read lower, you must tell the water truck driver not to water so heavily. And a lot of this is just walking over, picking up the dirt, feeling of it, and seeing if you can make a ribbon, the hand things that we talked about. But every so often on lifts, like in a field, say, and it's kind of talking about this. When you start talking about this right here, what you're talking about is, let me get it marked. Ooh, got off the road there. So it goes back to just being the water truck driver. You just don't drive around and squirt water. The world is happening to my. You just don't drive around and squirt water everywhere. You watch how much water there is. When you're the compactor operator, as I think we talked about in my other video, you're constantly paying attention to how wet your dirt is. If you have to, you want to get off it and feel of it, but every once in a while, you have to bring out an instrument that measures the moisture content, nuclear density meter, test, or whatever, nuclear density. And it sends gamma rays down into the ground. And don't ask me how, but it tells you the percent of moisture versus the density of the soil. And they've already established a percent moisture in what's called a Proctor test. And I started to do a tailgate over that, but it would be a good place to put it. I may still do it if I can find something that has a lot of clarity, but it gets pretty complicated. But when they bring a sample into the lab, they will dry it, and then they'll weigh it, and then they'll compact it, add a little bit of moisture, compact it, weigh it, and what's happening, they're watching the moisture content versus the density of that sample in a lab situation. So at one point, you're going to be adding moisture, let's say, and you're in a cylinder and you're mechanically compacting it, and you're taking it out of the cylinder, you're weighing it, and you're putting it back in. And as the weight increases, versus if the weight increases more than the uh, moisture, you don't want too much moisture. So if it compact, you're adding soil, you're adding moisture, you're compacting, and you're weighing. So at some point, that is going to reach what they call optimum moisture. In other words, it's going to be as compacted as it can be before it gets too much moisture and it starts turning to, I'm just going to use the word mud. So that's what I mean by it's a really, really thing. You got to keep your eye on it. There's some people been around long enough where they can pick up a piece of soil and really do one of those ribbon tests or see if they can make it, see how plastic is, how plastic the soil is. For you guys that's been through the soil class, I don't know if you all, some of you have, but we're going to really, really dive deep into what I'm talking about right now in that basic soil science course. So let me see where I am. I can't just keep rambling on here, but I wanted you to know uh, as much as I could throw in addition to what the book, in addition to what the book has. So I think uh, I think I'm gonna stop right there. Much more left in this book. I'm afraid I'm gonna have to leave that to you. Uh, this right here, if I get time, I'll talk about this a little bit uh, more. Please read it in case I don't. There'll be a quiz that has 10 questions. If I will still try to come up with a good tailgate that maybe even on this right here on the check and grade and see what you guys can come up with and put it in a discussion. Uh, Here's some more stuff here. So I'll take time and take a look at that. We got a little bit of time here. We'll have, I guess, a week to get this done. I feel like, well, that's enough. I'm just going to stop this uh, planning section right here and see what else I can come up with that may help you have walk away from this week with some understanding of what it's like to uh, uh, build a subdivision. Otherwise, good luck on your favorite team. Uh, you won't have read this until that's over. But see you later, guys. I'm going to shut her down right now. And gals.